and welcome to Amethyst Star Crafting. My name is Jane Ormark and I'm a UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. And today we're going to make, in part of our Christmas craft ideas series that I'm doing. We're just over halfway through now. And I thought we would revisit something which I made many years ago, and I absolutely love these, and I've used them quite often, and at Christmas time is really lovely, which is a little tiny mini tissue box. Looks like our standard tissue boxes, but it's just a little mini one, and it takes the pocket size ones, and it'll open up both sides so that you can refill it with tissue so it can last and last and last. And it's just quite nice to sit on somebody's desk or to just have on the side of the table rather than those great big boxes. And the reason that I decided to do one of those was I was at my garden centre and I managed to find some tartan tissue. And with our wrapped in plaid pattern paper, I thought, my goodness, that would look absolutely lovely. And again, it's a nice little gift for some of the menfolk in our lives. So let's get started and make this. We need a piece of cardstock which measures, I get my scoreboard out, it measures 8 inches by 7.5 inches. So you are going to have it on the 8-inch side, and we are going to score it at 1/2 inch. Now the 1/2 inches are just a little tiny one down on here, so 1/2 inch, 1 3/4 inch, 6 1/4 inch, and 7.5 inches. Then we're going to rotate it onto the short side, and we're going to score it at, do it on that side where I've already got my score lines. So on the 7.5 inch side, we're going to score it at 2 1/4, 3 1/2, 5 3/4, and 7 inches. And that's all your scoring done. So we can take the scoreboard out of the way, put that just down there, and we are then going to burnish on all of the sides. So we've got, oops, little dimensional there. We've got this little one. I'm using cherry cobbler for this one. You can choose whatever colours you want, but I'm choosing cherry cobbler and the wrapped in plaid designer series paper, patterned paper. I absolutely love the tartan, I really do. And I think it works perfectly, as I say, for the some of the menfolk in our lives, which quite often, particularly for little sort of, you know, stocking fillers and maybe craft ideas and things as well, just putting something with patterned paper which is tartan works really well for the men. So we now have the large piece through on here, and we've got 2 of these small pieces which are exactly the same. So we are going to take a pair of scissors, and we are going to cut up, there's the first 2 score lines all the way along. So cut it up as neatly as you can. And what I tend to do to just make it close a little neater is I will take it up onto the score line and then just literally take, in a straight line this time, just a tiny weeny little nip out of it, because I want it to be as neat as I can, and the score line just makes it close just a little bit raggedy is probably the wrong word, but the score line does tend to just let it stick out a little bit. So I'm just literally doing a tiny little sliver and then taking that off up at the top. So I'm working down again, going just inside that score line, and that's only my personal preference, depending how neat you want it to close. But because these are the edge pieces coming in, that's why I'm literally just taking a tiny sliver off and nipping it at the top. Okay, so that's that side done. Then we're going to turn around and do exactly the same on the other side. So I'm just taking it just inside that score line on one side. And I'm not wedging because I want these edges to be straight, because a lot of them are folding in. But what I am doing is just taking just where the score line is out. I can neaten that up when I get round to the other side, but it just makes it a little bit of a nicer finish. As I say, those bits I can do when I get to the other when we start putting it sort of together, but I just want that little score line taken out of the way, and I don't want a wedge because I want my edges to be straight. So and then this little last piece on here. Okay, so if we then look at it, we've got these two short pieces down on this side. Now we want to take both of those out, and we do want to give that a bit of a wedge. So if you just cut it in just at an angle like that, and then on the other one, so these are the smaller little pieces. There we go. And that's going to be the bit that's going to put it together. So when we put it together like that, it is going to go onto that bit. Okay, so we then need to look at it and decide that that's going to be our back. That is going to be our front piece. So on this piece, we need to take this piece out. And we need to take that piece out. So if we look at it, it's the piece that we've got nearest to that little folded edge. Now, I like to have a little bit of extra stability in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this where the flap is on here. I'm going to cut this piece in just under half, just straight along. Oops, trying to get that straight. It probably won't go straight, and we're going to do exactly the same to the other piece. And the reason for that is that I then will glue those inside, and that will just make it a little bit neater on there. Okay, then we need to look at our pieces on here. And these ones we need to take out. So we close it up again like that on there. We've got that bit going in, that bit going in on there. We need to take these two, all of these ones on here, and we need to take these pieces off because we don't want these little pieces on there. So we'll take that one off. So the smaller ones, we need to take that extra score piece off because that's just going to score in nicely. And then on the other side, exactly the same thing, just take those two pieces out. And on this one. Like that. Okay, so let's go putting it. I always do this because I find it's easier to do it that way to start off with. So that's going to close in on there. That's going to close up there. And then that's going to go in on there. Okay, so that's how we want it perfectly. Okay, and we can have this on there. So this is going to be our top piece, which is here. And this is where we are going to cut our little, let's take those little pieces out of the way. This is where we are going to cut our little top piece in like this. So there is the, here it is, label punch. I will put the link of it down below. There are different shaped label punches, and if you haven't got a label punch, use an oval or something like that. But what you need to do is you need to first of all cut out a template, because we want this to be as centered as we can in the middle. So if we cut a template out like that, that's the right sort of size for it. Before we do that though, we need to do the put the patterned paper on. So we have one piece which measures 4 1/4 inches by 2 inches, and that's going to go on the top. I'm not going to put one on the bottom because I don't think we have to. And then I've got the side pieces and the bottom piece, but I'm going to do that last. So let's do this piece first. So we're going to glue this one on, because then we're cutting through both of the pattern paper together. And then we know that our centerpiece is going to be exactly how we want it. So just glue that on. I'll put this on here. Like that. And then we're going to put, this is why I cut one out of in fact it was a leftover piece from the other one. We want this to go on the inside like that. Now we have got this little flap that is going to come in underneath. So if we put that there like that, we're going to need to have this piece. We'll put it as near as we can, and what we might have to do is to cut a tiny little piece out of the wedge. Now with this, I'm just going to put it on with, really doesn't matter what, I can just put it on with a little bit of glue, because that piece is going to come out, so we don't need to worry about it. And then we're just going to line it up as best as we can in the center. Whoops. Like that. It's fairly easy because you've got the lines of the tartan to sort of line it up to. Okay, so I'm just putting that down. This is me lining it up to the tartan. I've slid it again, haven't I? There we go. That's a bit, probably could go up a bit, couldn't it? I'm not very good at eyeballing things straight. I think that's about straight. And then we're going to take the punch, and we can put that through. That's still slid a bit, so I haven't got enough glue on there. Put a good wad of glue on. I haven't put a huge amount of glue on there, but as long as we have it roughly where we want it, then you're just going to put the punch in over the top. You can line the punch up with the piece that we're going to cut out, and then, and I might have to stand up for this because my hands aren't particularly strong, but then we punch that out, and what it's given us is the nice little piece in the center, which is where we're going to have our tissues poking out. So let's put that back down on there. All right, so now we can then take this piece when it's going to be glued up like that, and you will see that you have got a little bit of it hanging out. Now, it depends, as I say, on the size of the punch. So what I do at this stage is I'm just going to take a pen and mark down that piece on there, like that. And then we can cut that bit out so that that is then not going to show. And as I say, it depends on the size of the punch that you've got. As to whether you need to do this little tiny just nip piece out. But then it means that it's not going to show. And I like it to look nice and neat when I've finished it, so I'll just take that little piece out like that. Okay, so we can now put this piece together like that. So if we just put some glue in along that little tab piece, like that. Oops, glue going everywhere. And then we're just going to tuck this piece in on there and just hold it until it's glued down nicely. And you can see now you haven't got that little piece showing, which is good. Okay, so before we actually put it completely together, we are going to put our other pieces of pattern paper on. So we need 2 pieces which measure 4 1/4 inches, so you can cut them all off of the same strip, and the side pieces are going to be by 1 inch, and we need 2 of those because we've got 2 side pieces. So you can cut all of this out of one piece of 6x6 pattern paper. So I have this one on here. So you have a nice 1/4 inch border around on there, which I think looks nice. You can do an 1/8 inch if you wanted to, but I think it looks better, in my opinion, with a 1/4 inch border on there, because then it shows the cardstock through on the side. So let's put this one up. Oh, I had that little stripy bit at the top. Let's do it exactly the same on the other side, because you've got this lovely gold foil piece coming through. So I'm going to put that in there. And again, take your time. There's no rush with these things. Preparation, as I'm always sort of rabbiting on about. Now, the 2 little pieces that we're going to have on the end, they will measure 2 inches. Just double check. Yes, 2 inches by 1 inch. So we'll have one on that side. Like that, and one on the other side. The nice thing about this as well is that if you happen to be making a whole pile of them for Christmas, they are what you call a fold flat box. So you don't have to, let's put that side. I know it doesn't line up completely, but it lines up almost. So it means that you can store them flat and then just get your packets of tissue just before you do it. And if you're looking for just a box to put things in, don't do the piece at the top, and you've got a nice little sort of fold flat box, a very sort of standard size and design. Okay, so we now have this piece here, which is we're going to use as a bit of extra strengthening. Now, you don't have to do this. I just find that I think it makes it more aesthetically pleasing. So we're just going to put some glue on this end like that, and then that is literally just going to fold straight in, and we'll hold it flat on the bottom, and it just adds just a little bit. If you're using it again and again, which I tend to do if I'm using my little tissue boxes and things. I've got one that's probably about good 2 or 3 years old now that I use. By doing this, when you're putting things in and out, you've got that just extra little bit of stability there. So we're going to do exactly the same on the other one. So this literally just goes straight inside and just makes it look a little bit neater. So again, hold it in. So that's nice and straight. And then on these little pieces here, which are going to be the pieces that flip in, if you want to take a very tiny little wedge out of them, and when I say tiny, you want it to be quite small. If you make it too big, what happens is that the box doesn't close particularly well. It closes, but it comes open again too easily if you have your wedge too much. So just a little, what I call a nip, just out on the side there. And a little one on there. Okay, and now we can close. So there is no particular preference. You can close it from whichever end you want. So let's close this one up on this side. Like that. And then on the other side, I can open these absolutely lovely tissues. I was really pleased about these ones. I don't know whether you can get them all over the world. I have absolutely no idea. What are they? They were in a stand at my local garden centre, and they had all sorts of different patterns and things. And they are made by a company called Caspan hankies. C-A-S-P-A-N. Oh, Caspani. C-A-S-P-A-N-I. Hankies. So, as I say, I don't know whether you can get them anywhere else. I would think you could probably in the UK get them at most of the garden centres. The garden centres seem to have so many different sort of ideas and things. And it's actually called Royal Plaid as well, or Royal Plaid, or tartan, or whatever. So I just thought it would be quite fun to have some tartan hankies in a tartan holder. But obviously you can see with this one I just put the plain white hankies in there. So I'm trying to get this open as neatly as I can. It's quite sort of firm stuff, but I think these are absolutely lovely. They're not an exact colour match, but I don't expect you get an exact colour match, but I think that they're pretty. They are pretty good. Now, have we got a little piece that comes up? Yes, probably. So I'm just going to tuck those in there like that. Close the other end up. This one in. I might actually need to just take a little chink off of there. You can see that that's just a little bit tight, so if you need to take just a little piece off on there, you can do. And as I always say, I try and do it so that it's straight. So if you need to trim, just trim just a little bit off, and then you'll find it will close just a bit easier. You can do it in a wedge if you want to. I like it to close straight on a tissue box, but that's just my personal preference. So that gives us just a little bit more with it going back on there, and then our little end will go in. Come on. Like that. Just take that little tiny piece that I just trimmed off on there. And there we have a rather nice snazzy tissue box with, I can get one of these to just come out a little bit, with this lovely tartan paper on. I'm going to try and just pull one out actually. You see, I always at the end, I always faff about a little bit. So these, they are, I need to take one out. They're not, they're wrapped completely flat, so they're a little bit different to the ones that you have in your in these sort of ones that are linked together so that you can pull one piece up at a time. So I'm just going to open them up to see exactly what they're like. They're very thick as well, which is quite good. So I'm just actually going to fold it so that it looks quite nice on there, and then I will just have one little piece up like that. So I'm just going to put that in, and that's just for me to make it look pretty, to give it to somebody. They're probably not the best tissue to have in a box where you're getting little pieces. You want it to, you know, to pull one out like you do on normal hankies. They are sort of fold flat ones, but I just wanted to try with this tartan paper. Your standard white ones are obviously a lot easier to do, but I can just do that like that, can't I? It makes it look just a little bit pretty, but they're not the best for pulling out of a box. I think that they're sort of standalone ones, but I just wanted to try with that tartan paper and I thought it looked really pretty. So after all that faffing about, clear my pieces out of the way. There we are. Two lovely little tissue boxes, one done with sort of the greeny background, one done with a red background, and they make a lovely little gift. So thank you so much for watching me. Do look forward to seeing you again for the next one in my series of gift ideas for Christmas. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.